Hello, tonight this is Brian Foster, and we're bringing you what really happens during near death experiences according to Spiritism. And we are talking about William's near death experience, where he found out there is a universal intelligence. It's very exciting. This is one of the near death experiences I talk about in my book, What Really Happens During Near Death Experiences According to Spiritism. You can find it in the links below. You can also go to my website, nwspiritism.com. You'll find all my books on the right-hand side, all the way talking about Spiritism 101, how to live, how to ascend in your spirit world. These two books, I have Near Death Experiences According to Spiritism, plus The Spirit World Talks to Us also is here in book form, which I will go over later in our later talks as we get to those. So again, you can get these two books all about near-death experiences, exciting stories about what people experience. And then what I try to do is through the writings of different spiritist mediums, interpret really what they saw. So I hope you enjoy that. Again, we are here and we're talking about Spiritism. If you'd like to find out about Spiritism, please go see and read Allan Kardec's The Spirits book. It is a wonderful book. You can get it on PDF. You can get it on Amazon.com. You can get it on the Spiritist website. So I have links to that on my blog. The other thing I'd like to bring to your attention, just before we get into William H. NDE, is the movie. It's on Netflix now, Kardec. It's wonderful. You can listen to it either in English, Portuguese, with English subtitles, however you want. Please go see it. It really explains the life of Allan Kardec. Okay, let's get on to William's NDE. Now, William had an NDE in 2003, and he found himself surrounded by beings made of light who could communicate by thought. What does this mean to us, and how should it change your thinking? I explain. So, first, William had a heart attack in 2003, and he found himself out of his body and taken to another place. Now, this story I got from the nderf.org website, which contains many interesting NDE stories, which I encourage you, if you're interested in near-death experiences, please check them out. NDERF, as in researchfoundation.org. This is what he described. My whole life, it turned out, had been practiced for the moment of dying. My higher soul stepped forward, speaking reassuringly about how it had been through this so many times before, while my lower soul, this lifetime's personality, went mute in the face of the vast unknown. My higher soul catapulted it with one last sigh of joy and gratitude. What a glorious creation. Now, if William had studied and learned about Spiritism, he would have known all this, but it came as a shock to him, which is quite sad, because Spiritism has been out there since the 1850s, but organized religions have tried to tamp it down. They don't want normal people to believe in reincarnation. They don't want to think that really you don't have to go to church. You just have to study and think and improve yourself. The more you learn by reading about Spiritism, the more you'll see you don't need to go someplace once a weekend or dress a certain place or give money to a certain donation box. You don't have to do any of that, right? You don't have to eat the right food. You just have to modify your character, your personality. So it's very well written NDE episode that William wrote. So what he tells us is almost immediately he realizes that we all travel through multiple lives. Just that realization just sprang upon him, because as he talked about his lower soul and his higher soul, he really is talking his physical brain and what it knew, which is connected to his spirit via the paraspirit. And instead of this pipeline being constricted because you could really only understand what your physical brain can interpret, that constriction was open now. He could think with the spirit brain. Everything just came to him. So upon his near-death experience, he relearns the absolute truth that we are all immortal souls, and that we are reborn on earth to study to be better. Although he calls it my higher soul, right? As I said before, it's really his spirit. And his spirit contains all the memories of his previous lives. So, for all of you out there, know this well. We are a combination of our spirit, the paraspirit, and our body. When we die, the body is just this temporary, diving suit that we cast off, and it dissipates away back into the earth. We are still who we are. It doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference if somehow we've been wounded or, somehow mentally incapacitated. Our spirit is still always intact. It's whatever happens to our physical body uh, doesn't necessarily impact your spirit. There are situations where suicides can impact your paraspirit. You have to come back in order to repair the paraspirit. But our spirit brain is always intact. So then William describes what he felt in his body made of energies. This is what he said. I was fully awake when I realized I was myself a sphere of communion, a sphere of aware light, surrounded by an infinite number of other spheres of aware light. As I experienced it then, the sphere of universal communion is an infinite space of aware light that is occupied by all the individual spheres of aware light that has ever or will have exist, as if it were one mind occupied by all the individual ideas it has ever or ever will conceive, or a timeless, limitless oversoul occupied by all the individual souls that ever have or ever will enter the realm of time, space, and personality. As I said, I do not pretend to know what its true name is, but the relation between the whole and its parts, and between parts and parts, that I can see with diamond clarity. So, everyone has different NDEs. And some people have NDEs where they're still in their physical body. At least they think they're in this physical body. He was probably a pretty high spirit to begin with and knew that he didn't have to wear that clothing. Most souls that have near-death experiences are go from the physical life to the spirit life. You still have your paraspirit, which will make you look like a human body. Now, you don't need that if you don't want that. You really look like, as he says, a sphere of light. But for those around you and who you are, you have this spirit body. It's made up of more energy than matter, and the matter it has is less dense than the matter we have here on Earth. So then he says he could connect. And of course, that's what Spiritism tells us, is that as you go higher and higher in the spirit realm, you can connect to the, what I call it, the universal cloud, the universal database. He calls it the universal communion, which are all good names, is where you can access all sorts of things. You still, as he said, you're still you're still your personality. And yet you are this connection, and not only the connection, but you feel this love and warmth. And it allows you, so as you learn more and you study more, it allows you to rise above and have more and more connection. Plus, everyone knows who you are, because we all have, even in our physical body, we all have a unique signature that radiates from our minds. Our thoughts are constantly transmitting like a radio tower out to all around us, which travels all the way to the end of the universe and comes back again. Conversely, even as a human and especially as a spirit, we receive wavelengths which contain thoughts from intelligence that surround us. Hence, as William sees it, we do live in a sphere of universal communion, in continuous communication, and we live in that state thanks to the benevolence of God, the Oversoul, who created all and set the natural laws we must follow. We even hear these thoughts in our physical body, but they don't really percolate up. Some people can, and some people are very, empaths, where they can feel the feelings radiating from other people. So next, William writes, each of us, as an individual sphere of communion, seems the embodiment of two complementary halves, understanding and memory. While understanding seems the principal characteristic of the higher soul, memory seems to be the principal characteristic of the lower soul. As I experience it, understanding is our individual portion of the limitless knowledge of the One Soul, the evolving insight we possess into the way of the One, our individual spark of immortality. Memory, on the other hand, is the accumulated impressions of all the lifetimes we recall, the sum of all the personalities we have yoked to our soul, our enduring storehouse of moral treasures. So I believe that William is just a little bit off his interpretation. So your paraspirit, really the way it works, as told by Spiritism, is your paraspirit, which is connected to your body, allows you to retain the memories you create while you are in your physical body and while you're in previous physical bodies. In fact, Spiritism tells us that it's a universal translator. If you're even in spirit form, you have your paraspirit, and you're talking to some lower spirit who's speaking in the language that you had lived some life as that in that culture and learning that language, your paraspirit will automatically translate what they're saying. So if you had been, let's say you are in Thailand and you're a spirit and you go down into Thailand and someone is speaking Thai to you, and if you've been in that previous life, you would automatically hear that. Now, spirits also communicate by thought too, so that the spirit could, if they were high enough, could send you thoughts and then also images by thoughts. But that's kind of what he's talking about, his memory in his individual lives. That's really, he's accessing his paraspirit database, which is a local database for you that has everything that you've experienced. So then, yes, so William is correct. It is your organic mind which first stores the memory, but all of them are uploaded into your spirit via the paraspirit, where if you wish, you can recall in lifelike detail every second of your favorite recollections or every millisecond of your life. You may ask, why can't we recall memories from our past lives? Well, some young children do when the ties between the paraspirit and the brain is forming, but most grow out of it. That's why you read a lot of stories of children who will say these things and they go, how do they know that? And then they'll find out they were their own, grandfather or great grandfather. And then 7 or 8, they lose it. It doesn't happen anymore. And actually, what the spirit tell us is that a child is really still being tied to their mother, even by their blood, until they're 7 or 8. It takes that long to really separate from your parents, from your mother. But what we do retain in our physical brain is our conscience and instinct. So therefore, listen to your conscience. It contains years, thousands of years of experience, and attempts to direct us to the right path. Every decision we made, no matter where you want to or not, it's filtered in your conscience. And if you feel stressed about something you're going to do, that's usually telling you that's not a good idea. In fact, what we need to learn is, what we actually should say we need to unlearn, is to stop rationalizing why we should go against our conscience. We should follow our conscience, even though sometimes it may be somewhat detrimental to what our desires are. So again, then we have instincts. Heed your instincts. Our accumulation of lives should make us better aware when our decisions are in question. Lastly, when you pass from your current life, your memories of past lives don't return immediately. Most of the time, it depends on the level of the spirit. Rather, on the majority of the time, they come back slowly as you accustom yourself back to your real life as a spirit. Now, the other important thing that we're told in Spiritism is the whole environment of love. And you hear that from so many people with near-death experiences. William also perceives the love of the beings around him. This is what he says. Our individual spheres of aware light, many of great depth of understanding, with a memory of thousands of lifetimes, generously taught me lessons to bring back and make use of in this lifetime. Such, it seems, is the loving kindness of our collective ancestors, who care so deeply that this era of transformation is one of metamorphosis and not one of atrophy. So, Love is what God wants us to radiate. This is why we must journey through many, many lives filled with strife to absorb the lessons required to allow us to love in every circumstance, to feel what others have felt, and reach out to help wherever it is needed. Now, William doesn't yet realize that this is God's plan and that in our solar system, Jesus is our loving governor. He is the one who directs the destiny of the earth. Now, when he says such, it seems the loving kindness of our collective ancestors, he could mean that these are family that he's been around and that he may not understand that he is reincarnated in the same family groups and that those people have been around him. He may think of them as ancestors, but they really are present people. They're contemporaries who've probably been in other past lives with him. And some of them are in his present life. He may not know that yet because he hadn't met them during his NDE, but they have been helping him while they're in the spirit world and he's in the physical world, and vice versa when they're in the physical world and he is in the spiritual world. So William takes what he has felt and found that it carries over to our world. Although, he says, this is what he says, although it's much more difficult to perceive here than in the sphere of universal communion, we are no less individual spheres of communion here than we are there. Once I had experienced what it feels like to recognize myself as a sphere of aware light in the bodiless state, I found I had become sensitive enough to perceive myself as that same sphere of communion here with the body, and sensitive enough to recognize that everyone else is a similar sphere of aware light as well. So what he's really seeing is he now knows that we are all immortal souls and we all have a spirit that's connected to our body. And yes, we're all in communion with our body here, in our physical body. And our physical body is important while we're alive, but we leave it behind. And what is important is our character and our personality. So while we reside in our cumbersome bodies, our abilities to truly identify with others, to share thoughts, emotions, and love is somewhat diminished in our physical form. We should all recognize that humans are spirits in many different levels of perfection. It is our duty to assist others in their quest to become better. Sometimes that means helping, and other times it can mean some tough love, so that they will be able to understand the lessons they need to internalize here on Earth. Now, if you would like to read more about NDEs and what it means and how Spiritism interprets NDEs, I talked about my book, Near Death, what really happens during near-death experiences according to Spiritism. You can also read my second book on near-death experiences, The Spirit World Talks to Us, 12 accounts from near-death and other experiences. This will go through even 12 more, and I will talk about these in later Facebook live streams. These will all be posted to our YouTube channel and BitChute channel. So if you're here listening on YouTube, you can check the links for all the books I mentioned and down below on BitChute also. You can also go to my website, nwspiritism.com, and find the links to my books also. Additionally, now, if you'd like to understand more about the organization and the process of the spirit world, please read my book, Heaven and Below. It tells you, it's book one. There's actually a series of 3 books. It tells you about everything that I have been able to gather from spiritist mediums, all about heaven. There are many levels of heaven. What is below the heaven, which is the lower zone, the umbral, which is on the surface of the earth up to heaven. The dark abyss, which is kind of a hell or purgatory. There is no eternal purgatory. Then my second book is Spirits and the Spirit Universe, telling you all about spirits. What are the attributes of the spirits? You can dive much deeper into what William understood, and it tells you everything. Not everything, because there's more to learn, of course, as we go on, but it tells you much of what's been out there according to Spiritist writers. And of course, my third book of the series, How Spirits Guide Us individually, how they've guided the earth and more importantly for a lot of people is, what is the future for Earth? We are on a planet of atonement now, a planet where we all pay for our past wrongs, but eventually we'll be on a planet of regeneration, which we will have much less wars, hate, envy, inequality, everything we want. The Earth will become the paradise that it should be. Now, lastly, if you would like to understand more about Spiritism, I would recommend you to go to the website spiritismstudy.org. You can connect with a person to ask questions about Spiritism. You know, I'm on there. You can go to me personally. I just actually the other day I talked to someone from Australia, which was great. It was evening for me, morning for him. We had a good talk about his questions and Spiritism, and the conversation goes wherever you want to. I'm not going to tell you have to read this or ask that. Let's just talk and see where you want it to go. So I want to recommend everyone, please check out my books on Spiritism. Check out Allan Kardec, Chico Xavier's. I also have books, How to Live, which is all about how to ascend. That's on audiobook. My book, 7 Tenets of Spiritism, which is my more personal book of what Spiritism means to me and how I've lived with it day to day. It is also on audiobook if you like audiobooks. Anyway, I want to say good night and God bless.